I am in Istiklal Street in Istanbul. It's their version of New York's Fifth Avenue or Paris's Champs-Élysées, except the advantage they have is that there's no cars that are supposed to be on here, although sometimes they do appear. Only supposed to have those vintage trams go by. Now, today we are going to talk about operating a charity. Now, what inspired that? Well, this guy right over here, he inspired that. Why is that dog the inspiration for today's video? Today we are going to talk about operating a non-profit charity. And specifically, that dog and cats that you see here run wild in the streets of Istanbul. It's very interesting that way. And then people feed them and just give them food, and occasionally when it's cold, they'll cover them with a blanket if they're sleeping on the side of the street. They're really nice. People are really nice to the wild animals that run here. And I haven't seen wild dogs pretty much anywhere else in the world that I've traveled to. I'm sure it exists in other places. Wild cats are pretty much everywhere though. Anyhow, okay, so we are going to talk about running a charity, a non-profit charity. Most of what I'm going to discuss is going to be fairly specific to United States, although I'm sure you could transfer it to wherever you are in the world if you're not in America, in North America, but a lot of this has to do with United States bureaucracy, truthfully. Okay, now, let's discuss operating a 501c3. First question is, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to run a nonprofit charity? Is your reason altruistic? Are you just looking to help people? Because if you are, then you have to decide whether your time or money is worth more. See, the thing is, when you run a charity, it's kind of like giving money, giving time instead of money. The question is, are you doing this for altruistic reasons? Because if you are, and your main goal is to push forth a cause, then maybe you're better off giving money instead of time. Maybe that will result in a larger impact that you can make. Because man, when you start a nonprofit, it is incredibly time consuming and challenging to do that. So the question you have to ask yourself is, why are you starting this 501c3 nonprofit charity? What is your goals and motivations? Now, let's start talking about some of the benefits first, okay? Obviously, you're going to be advancing your cause, but there are other ways to do that in most cases. Some causes are unique, but most of them, someone else is already doing it and you can just dump some money on their lap and that'll also advance the cause. So what is your motivation to do that? Now, some people's motivation may be because they want to do a hands-on helping of their cause. They want to do something physical. They want to say they created this, which is great, but be prepared to put in a lot of time and effort. Oh my God, that person's suitcase is so noisy. Istanbul is really loud. It's the craziest thing. It's a cool place though, but it's hard to shoot a video here. Okay, now, trying to put some space between me and the suitcase person. Okay, now, all right, let's talk about now motivations, okay? Besides altruism, some of the other benefits that you get from a charity include being tax exempt in the United States. You don't pay sales tax. You don't pay income tax on the corporation that is behind the nonprofit. If you're not familiar how to start a 501c3, I'll explain it shortly, but you need to have a corporation. Okay, you don't pay state tax or any taxes on that corporation unless you start doing for-private dealings. So there's a lot of benefits. You also become eligible to receive grant funding. You are eligible to receive donations, and the people who give them to you get tax deductions. These are the primary benefits of operating a charity. When I say benefits, I mean benefits to the people who operate it. I'm not talking about to the cause. To the cause, the benefits is entirely up to you. Believe it or not, there's nothing mandating how much your cause has to get, as long as they get something. So whatever you claim they're getting is sufficient. As long as they get 1%, that's enough. It's a messed up system in that reality, because that's how a lot of charities do operate. So people will give, let's say $1, I'm just making it an easy number, 90 cents of it go to operation, 10 cents is supposed to go to the cause, but the way it goes to the cause is it goes to the cause through hiring someone who does something for the cause, and that person keeps most of it.
Oh, wow. Nice meeting you.
sorry for that. All right, I tried to shoot these things in like one continuous segment, but honestly, the amount of times I've been disturbed right here on Istiklal from recording is gonna mean I'm gonna have to cut this a few times. Charities typically operate where the charity determines what percentage of their amount of money, funds that come in actually impact the cause. It could be as little as 1%. It doesn't matter to anything at a legality level. Obviously it matters to your supporters, but legally speaking, if 1% of your money goes to the cause, that is sufficient. Now, you have to live up to your obligations, so if you're saying that 90% go to your cause, you do have to do that. But beyond that, there's no real legal mandates of how much your charity how much impact your charity actually has to have, which is sad because I'm personally someone who enjoys the altruism of running a nonprofit. The amount of money that comes into your charity versus how much impact you make is entirely up to you. There are no legal mandates that say you have to give a certain percentage ending up at your charity or how much impact you do. In fact, there are lots of charities that unfortunately operate where they'll take 90% to go to operating expenses, which means the salaries of the people working there, and 10% will go to hiring someone to actually do the work, and that person keeps 90% of that money. And basically when you're done, they burn through all of the charitable funds that way. This is how it is, okay? Now, in general, though, you do determine your impact and how much money you make, how much money you keep versus how much money goes to the impact that you make. It is entirely up to you how to determine that. You have to decide whether your mission is to be altruistic or opportunistic. And that's up to you, and I'm not judging you. I know how I run my organizations, though, okay? Now, the next question is are you really ready to put in this much time effort versus money? Because money is sometimes easier to come by than the time it takes to run a nonprofit charity. These things are incredibly time consuming. And let's just jump in, dive right into why. Let's talk about starting up one. First thing to get it started. The first thing you have to absolutely do is create your 501c3. The reason you do this first is because it takes 9 to 12 months on average to get them. Here and there you hear some miracle story, someone got it in only half a year. All right, usually it takes 9 to 12 months and may have several iterations where they ask you to do revisions on your application before you will be approved. In order to file for the 501c3, you do have to have a New York State corporation. That New York State. I'm from New York, so that's why I said that. A corporation in the United States. Now, ain't that cool? But the cars aren't really supposed to be here, just the train. Okay. Now, you do have to have a U.S. corporation filed in whatever state you're operating in. That's one of the aspects of starting a 501c3 as a prerequisite to even putting the application in. However, if you've ever done that before, you know it's filing a piece of paper. By the way, do not use a lawyer to create your corporation. What a waste of money. People blow like $500 each time they start a company on legal fees. It's one document. Just download it, send it in. Now, to actually operate the company, you definitely need a lawyer. I'm not stating that. I'm just talking about for filing it. Lawyers typically charge around $500 to create a corporation, which is a complete rip-off if you know how to do it yourself. And it takes about 5 minutes to do. It's a very quick $500 in your pocket. All right, now, let's talk about lawyers and attorneys and stuff like this. You need one. You need one if you're operating a 501c3, and I would highly advise not paying for one, not budgeting it, but finding a volunteer one, because they have to get a certain amount of hours every year of volunteer work, and they have to contribute it somewhere. Let it be to your charity, because you're going to need their time. Operating a nonprofit has an enormous amount of legal work involved. You also want to do the exact same thing for an accountant. There's so much accounting work to be done, paperwork, it's endless. Okay, you want to make sure you have a volunteer accountant. So again, startup, form your corporation, file your 501c3, get an accountant who's doing this pro bono, get an attorney who's doing this pro bono, And the next thing you also have to do, which is a prerequisite actually for filing your 501c3, you have to form your board. Now, every nonprofit in the United States has at least 3 board members. You can't start a charity without at least 3. Now, your attorney, your accountant, and you can make up those 3. That's okay. But you need 3 minimum. Most people operate with more than that. Now, you are married to your board. I got news for you. You can't fire them the way you fire an employee. It's a lot more complicated. So just be aware that whoever you start with on your board, you're stuck with them. Be fully aware of the implications of that. Now, you can make ways out for you if you are not happy with your board, or your board's not happy with you. They can use it against you too, by setting up clauses when you form the organization in your bylaws. And those clauses could be that every board member has a term of only 1 year, or that there are requirements of every board member. If they don't fulfill them, they don't remain as board members. However, most people don't do that when they first start the organization. So assume that your founding board you are potentially married to. Okay. Now, next thing you got to do to start your 501c3, well, you are going to wait for the IRS to send you a certificate saying that your 501c3 application has been approved. And you're going to keep this thing in like 100 different copies because it's going to be asked of you all the time, okay? It's called your 501c3 determination letter. You will use this endlessly. The first thing you're going to use it for is in whatever state you're in. If you have state taxes, which not every state in America does, but most do. If you have state taxes, you're going to send this thing in to your state governance and become tax exempt for sales tax in your state. It's another filing you need to do. You also are going to need insurance. Even if you're not even operating yet, you need D&O insurance. Directors I think it stands directors and organizers. I'm not really sure what D&O stands for. But either way, do you need D and O, the letters D and the letter O. D&O insurance. Okay, every charity is required to have that if you're going to operate in a nonprofit format. Okay, it's not legally required, it's required by everyone who asks you. So if you go for a grant, sometimes they'll ask you, do you have D&O insurance? Can you supply the paper? If you are looking for people to volunteer for your charity, the organization and an organization that's helping you find volunteers might ask for that. Every charity is going to need to have D&O insurance. All right, so that's part of why you have an attorney on your board to help you get that, because it's a pain in the neck to go through all the paperwork and headaches of that. You have other insurances that are optional, but highly recommended. So depending on what your charity's purpose is, you may want to be insured for all sorts of things. And if you have property, you want to have obviously comprehensive coverage on your property if you have that kind of charitable cause. Now, remember, when you run a charity, a lot of these things use volunteers. Slip and fall insurance is another one, meaning if a volunteer breaks their neck on your property, God forbid, you want to make sure you got insurance. They ain't gonna sue you and ruin your and destroy your charity. $1 million, brand new charity. That could eat you up. All right. Next thing, all the amazing filings. Oh my God, you are gonna be swimming in paperwork with a nonprofit. This is the way it works. All right. And the filings are not just initial. The filings are annual and sometimes more. So for random examples, everyone needs to file an annual assessment of your funding situation. It's called the 990. Anyone who works in a charity knows what a 990 is. All right, the 990 form has about 4 different types to it, depending on how much money you're pulling in. 990 easy, 990 N, whatever. Again, all bureaucratic stuff you want your accountant to do. You don't want to be the one doing that unless you happen to be a CPA. In the case of New York, and I don't know if this is nationwide, but it might be in every county in America, you also have to file that you are a registered charity. It's a simple form, but it's just one more thing to do as a startup to register your nonprofit as a charity. And yes, you can be a nonprofit and not considered a charity in New York, at least. I don't know how it is the rest of the country. And by the way, just for a reference point, a 501c3 is an IRS status. It's not your company. Your company is a corporation just like any other. C Corp, S Corp, whatever you're gonna file there. I'm not gonna go over corporation types in this video, it's beyond the scope. But basically it's a regular corporation with a unique tax exemption status. That's it. I guess it's not that unique, there's lots of 501c3s, but a different tax exemption status. Now, the other thing you want to keep in mind when you operate a charity is in your bylaws, which is a document you file when you first start your 501c3, and you can amend it later, you're going to have set how many board meetings you have annually. Lots of people do one every month or one every 2 months. But you have to have at least, I think, 1 or 2 per year as a minimum. Your board has to meet and discuss the aspects of your charity and keep a log of the discussions that happen. That's right, you have to keep board notes. It's a mandate, legal mandate. You have to keep notes of your board meetings. This is not for the faint of heart, running one of these things. If you've never done it before, man, just be prepared for a lot of effort and time put into it. Now, it does have incredible benefits if you're altruistically looking at this and looking at the impact that it makes. You can do incredible things running your charity. You have to decide whether your purpose in life is to be altruistic or opportunistic. You have to decide whether you're doing things for the greater good, for the yin and yang, for balancing out the wrongdoings of the world, or if your purpose is otherwise. Because if it's anything other than the altruistic, you probably can find ways to make money easier than a 501c3. They're really difficult. All sorts of things come up randomly that you don't expect running a 501c3. Like you have to put like the census data. Believe it or not, the United States Census, while it's suggested and recommended for the average person, for a nonprofit charity, it's a legal obligation to fill out the census form. You will lose your Social Security benefits or to the employees or something of that nature if you don't fill it out. It's brutal. Honestly, the amount of things they make you do to run a nonprofit are quite brutal. You need to have a nice... I have no idea what he just said. I don't know what that was. Anyway, I don't speak a word Turkish. I have no idea what he's saying. Is he done? Alright. Filling out the paperwork and doing all the other bureaucratic aspects of running a 501c3 is honestly a daunting task. But you can do so much good in the world, make such big impact doing it. It's really incredible what you can do when you run an organization, but you need to have a lot of people. It's not going to work, and you need to have people who are going to put the effort in, not just going to be sitting on your board and doing nothing, or sitting on your team as a volunteer who comes in and doesn't do anything because they want to attribute themselves to being part of your charity. You get a lot of that. You get a lot of volunteers who want to say they volunteered but don't actually want to do anything. It's incredible how many people are out there like that. I didn't know this till I ran a charity, honestly. So many people want to volunteer, but then when you tell them what you actually need, then no, I don't want to do that. What the heck, man? What do you want to do? Oh yeah, sure. Here's your pat on the back. No, man. Seriously, people want to say they volunteered and don't really want to put in the effort. Lots of people. Of course there's good people out there, but it's hard to find good volunteers who actually want to put in the effort and do something. So keep that in mind when you that mosque, I think, was being built for a long time. It's very beautiful, but it was like a multi-year build process. Anyway, keep in mind that when you run a charity, you're going to have endless amount of people offering to volunteer but not coming through for you. This is something you're going to have to be aware of. Listen to what I'm saying. Don't doubt my words. You will have a lot of people offering to volunteer and not coming through for you. When you ask them to do something, they won't do it. It's just the way it works when you work with volunteers as opposed to people who get paid for their work. Something's going to come up in their life and they're going to say that's more important and I can't do it. I'm sorry. That's just the way it works with volunteering, okay? So keep in mind, this is a rough thing to operate. A 501c3 is not for the faint of heart. I would have to say among the businesses I've ran, it's easily the hardest one. And I'm calling it a business because it operates like one, not because it's money making like one, but because it does operate like a business, but with much more bureaucracy. Much more challenges, actually. It's much harder to operate than a typical business. So I would say, if you really got your heart set on this, do it. God bless you, man. This world needs more good in it. I mean, there's so much good in this world. That's why I shot this video here, because I was inspired by the wild dogs and cats I see on the street that are treated so beautifully here in Istanbul. But God, there's lots of ways to help in the world. Running a 501c3 is only for the people who genuinely want that, who genuinely want to build an organization where they help people at a full-blown level, okay? And I guess it's also for the people who want that tax exemption and have opportunistic ideas. You know, I'm not judging. You know, it's not what I do, but I'm not judging. All right, that's the mosque that's been under construction for a lot of years. It's quite beautiful. Okay, I am about done with this topic. You need to do a lot of work to get a 501c3 off the ground. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not going to happen in less than a year. That's another thing. Don't even expect that you're going to launch this thing in less than a year in a proper manner. You might get your cause rolling in less than a year, but you're not in any way going to be a fully operating charity in less than 1 year. It's impossible because the 501c3 status takes almost a year to get. Now, mind you, you can actually raise funds without that status. The thing is that anyone who donates to you won't get their tax deduction until you get that status, but it is retroactive. Wow, birds are like attacking me. I don't know if that was caught in the camera. Not attacking me, but they flew straight at me.
Oh, how are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Your 501. Hello. Your 501c3 status is retroactive, meaning that if someone donated to you while you didn't have it, but then you got it later, they still get their tax deduction. They just they can only claim the tax deduction after your 501c3 comes through. All right, I'm being blown away. The wind just picked up, and I'm about done. So I want to thank you all for watching. I know the time that you invest in my videos you don't get back. So I appreciate you invested in me and the time you spend learning from what I've got to teach. I'm a firm believer in the Psalm statement, Mikolam Dehi Skalti, from every teacher I have learned, and I appreciate that you are learning from me. Feel free to leave down in the comments any tips or things I've missed, because I'd like to learn from you. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I almost mixed that all together into like subscribe. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching.
Yeah!